With its electrifying chemistry, iconic soundtrack, and pulse-pounding dance sequences, Dirty Dancing sprang onto the screen in the late 80s. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze were famous all over the world because of it. Contrary to what the audience observed, there were actually a lot of conflicts behind the scenes, particularly when filming the now iconic Hungry Eyes sequence. Jennifer Grey was keeping a secret from everyone, and no one found out about it until much later. When it came to light, the truth of Set a Bad One took on a whole new light. The color red. The film Red Dawn, whose tensions behind the scenes laid the groundwork for what was to come, came before Baby and Johnny's iconic dance sequence. The news that Jennifer Grey would be starring opposite Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing supposedly broke her heart. There was never any friendly banter or genuine companionship between them. Instead, it drew from an unsatisfactory, unrelated film called Red Dawn. Red Dawn, an action film set during the Cold War and released in 1984, followed a gang of American high school students as they joined forces to fight against the Soviet invasion. It was a physically difficult, emotional, and intense film. There was a tumultuous mix of personalities and passions going on behind the scenes as well. The character of Jed Eckert, portrayed by Patrick Swayze, is a hard-charging individual who reflects Swayze's own temperament from that period. As one of the youthful combatants, named Tony Mason, Jennifer Grey played a supporting part. Not everyone left New Mexico as friends, even though the cast bonded over the demanding shooting schedule. Known for his serious approach to his craft, Swayze was a trained gymnast and dancer. He dove headfirst into his part, performing with the rigor and concentration of a soldier. However, his ferocity frequently seemed overwhelming. Even when the cameras weren't rolling, he allegedly would remain in character between takes. Though effective in action sequences, this manner made everyone else uncomfortable and unable to relax around him. When compared to this, Jennifer Grey was more impulsive and vulnerable. Her acting was softer and more natural, and she trusted her gut more. She felt that Swayze's actions during Red Dawn were excessively violent, masculine, and frightening at times. He enjoyed pulling practical jokes and pranks, but she thought he went too far with his gags. During production, Jennifer Grey voiced her displeasure with Patrick Swayze, saying that he would often make light-hearted jokes that made it difficult for her to maintain the appropriate emotional tone. Both of their personalities and the way they worked were incompatible. Jennifer Grey came clean later on how she thought he was charming at times, but challenging to collaborate with generally. She said he was a little conceited and masculine, a person who was required to direct each scenario. She had to tread carefully around Swayze on set because she could never tell his mood or if he would take her seriously. She wished they would never collaborate again after Red Dawn concluded. She had no idea what was about to happen. Fire and ice spellcasting. A formidable obstacle stood in the way of the Dirty Dancing casting team's pursuit of leads. There had to be intense, genuine, and electrifying chemistry between Johnny and Baby. Temperament, suspense, and bonding were needed. Although Jennifer Grey was cast as Frances Baby Houseman, it was somewhat more challenging to locate her Johnny. Afterwards, Patrick Swayze's name popped up. Not only did he look the part, but he also possessed the all-important dance training. His past with Jennifer Grey, however, was less than stellar. Jennifer Grey couldn't shake the recollection of their argument during Red Dawn. Jennifer Grey felt uneasy the second his name was mentioned as the male lead in Dirty Dancing. She expressed her uncertainty about working with him on another project to the casting crew. However, the producers were in dire need of a strikingly handsome and manly male lead with actual dancing experience. It didn't stop them from inviting Swayze to the casting calls. They were certain he was the only actor who could play Johnny Castle to their satisfaction. Then, right before their screen test, something happened that nobody saw coming. She was pushed aside by Swayze. He apologized while staring her down. Jennifer Grey reported that he told her, I love you, and I'm so sorry," using her own speech. "I also know that you would prefer that I not be involved with the film." He began to cry, and his voice wavered. While Jennifer Grey's guard remained up, she did notice a change in him at that same moment. She had a memory of him from Red Dawn, of an ostentatious, narcissistic performer. He was defenseless. "We have the ability to murder it. After they done this," he informed her, "we may kill it." Everything shifted at that instant. In spite of her reservations, Jennifer Grey consented to participate in his screen test. Everything shifted because of what occurred during that test. As soon as they stepped foot in the screen test, magic struck. Anxiety turned into intensity as their tension dissipated. Their vitality was palpable. It shocked the producers. There was genuine, palpable electricity between them. The combination of Swayze's commanding presence and Jennifer Grey's endearing clumsiness created an explosive and vibrant performance. The parts belonged to them. Their connection was palpable, even electric. The tension, however, that had simmered on Red Dawn for some years remained. Its sole purpose had been to lie dormant until the appropriate time to emerge. All the unsolved tension would resurface the moment they started recording Dirty Dancing. A battlefield it once was before it became magical. Uneven terrain lay ahead. The crew relocated to North Carolina's Lake Lure, where they were soon overwhelmed by the extreme shooting circumstances. Humidity, smog, and oppressive heat defined the weather. Time was of the essence, and funds were scarce. The crew and actors frequently toiled away in scorching temperatures for lengthy periods of time, with no respite. Reusing clothing and bare-bones sets were commonplace, and places occasionally only just managed to stay put. The shooting schedule was continuously modified to accommodate Swayze's recuperation from a knee injury he sustained on set. Jennifer Grey had to deal with the emotional burden of her previous experiences with Patrick Swayze, while also navigating the strain of playing the lead part, all while being concerned of Swayze's unpredictable nature. Despite the unease, a tale of love, social status, and defiance began to emerge. It wasn't just on-screen, though, that the drama unfolded. Secrets unfolded behind the scenes of Dirty Dancing, and the events that transpired there would leave an indelible impression on viewers just as much as the film itself. The Dirty Dancing team works behind the scenes. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze's unity began to dissolve after production for Dirty Dancing really began. The screen test's genuine chemistry and heartfelt apology couldn't mend the rifts caused by the two people's diametrically opposed personalities, which had festered for years. Disagreement arose again, on site, between trained perfectionist Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey's sensitive, intuitive approach. The suspense built up as the camera moved. Patrick Swayze had been dancing for a long time. Prior to pursuing acting, he had a successful career as a ballet dancer with classical training. Jennifer Grey, on the other hand, had never taken a dance class. She embodied the character with conviction, emotion, and expression. However, she frequently had difficulty with rhythm and choreography. Both she and Patrick Swayze found this disparity to be a constant cause of frustration. Due to Jennifer Grey's inability to maintain her composure, numerous scenes had to be reshot, sometimes dozens of times. Mid-take, she might burst into nervous laughter or have trouble keeping rhythm with the dance. Patrick Swayze, a dedicated and serious actor, was not patient with such gaffes. The stress of a demanding filming schedule didn't assist matters. Members of the crew have stated that right before the camera started rolling, they would stare at each other and rarely spoke. On the other hand, when the cues were given, they would fully immerse themselves in their roles, using their emotions to heighten the sexual tension that the audience would eventually adore. Arguments over ideas weren't the only thing at play here. When Patrick Swayze was around Jennifer Grey, she felt that he crossed the line from passionate to domineering. When they were dancing in rehearsal, he would take the lead and correct her form or attempt to direct her performance in a way that made her feel inferior. Actress Jennifer Grey was very intuitive. As a dancer, Patrick Swayze was meticulous. Because of this dissimilarity, an ego clash, as well as a clash of approaches, occurred. Some members of the crew allegedly had to physically separate them between takes. Despite Swayze's admiration for his talent and ambition, some thought his treatment of Grey came across as overbearing. Grey occasionally vented her annoyance and unease behind closed doors, claiming that Swayze's domineering presence made her feel overshadowed. She despised the idea being a pawn in his game. She desired to participate in the performance as an equal. The film's raw emotional impact was ironically fueled by this same tension. In Johnny's presence, Baby's seeming nervousness isn't an act. A lot of the on-screen intensity was derived from the genuine, unscripted feelings shared by the two main characters. Still, there was this one scene where the tension, misunderstanding, blunders, and friction seemed to boil over into something truly remarkable. It was incredibly challenging to film, but it became the film's most memorable scene. The elevator scenario. Of all time, the Dirty Dancing lift scene ranks high among the most memorable moments in film. For decades, it has been imitated, mocked, and praised. However, behind the scenes, there was a great deal of inner turmoil and genuine terror. Patrick Swayze lifted Jennifer Grey above his head in a sequence that required her to run into his arms. It took power, timing, and, most importantly, trust to pull this off. However, confidence was lacking during that particular scene. Surprisingly, Jennifer Grey declined to practice the lift, since she had never done it before. She screamed in terror. Jennifer Grey was a seasoned actress, but she still feared falling or getting hurt. This was extremely irritating for Swayze because of his perfectionist attitude and dancer's psyche. He put her faith in practice and planning, while Jennifer Grey trusted her gut and adrenaline. The already intense scene was magnified by the unusual circumstances of filming. Unlike the earlier lift, which they practiced in the icy lake, the iconic last lift of their climactic dance took place indoors. It was already nerve-wracking, but the pressure to achieve perfection made it worse. The build-up to this moment was hinted at in earlier dance scene preparations. The famous scene where Johnny puts his hand on Baby's arm and she starts laughing out loud wasn't originally written that way. Take after take, Jennifer Grey's uncontrollable laughter drove Swayze to rage. Why she couldn't control herself baffled him. The camera was often rolling as director Emile Ardolino urged the actors to improvise, despite the fact that performers strayed from their lines. For instance, in the sequence depicted on the poster, Grey had to face Swayze, her back turned to him, and raise her arm over his head while he ran his fingers down hers, just like in the film. This was supposed to be a touching and solemn moment, but Jennifer Grey was so tired that she found the gesture ticklish and couldn't help but giggle every time Patrick Swayze performed it, regardless of how many takes Ardolino requested. Swayze loathed Grey's antics and couldn't wait for the scene to end. The producers, however, thought the scene was okay the way it was, and included it in the film, despite Swayze's irritated expression and Jennifer Grey's giggles. The filmmakers decided to include that scene because they saw something authentic, something intense and visceral. They managed to record the iconic last lift in a single take without practicing, despite all the mayhem. The only things that helped were the adrenaline and tension, and they worked. The shot served as the film's dramatic high point. It has been much loved by viewers ever since. Nevertheless, problems and tensions between them had been growing during filming. Things had gotten heated earlier when filming the dance sequence set to Hungry Eyes, one of the most intimate scenes. Jennifer Grey didn't discuss what transpired at that moment until much later in life, and she kept it a secret for years. The response was tremendously strong once she did. What Grey hid? The repulsive conduct. For many, Dirty Dancing's hungry eyes montage represents a carefree, passionate, and unforgettable time in a budding romance.